think, Thomas,
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. So also a warm welcome from my side. My name is Thomas Herbst. I'm the founder and managing director of the Absolute Group, which is the specialized implementation partner for SAP procurement solutions. In the early beginning with SRM, and since 6 years we're also doing the Ariba implementations. And especially with OMV, I have a really long relationship. I started there implementing the SRM tool 2003, and I supported over the last years all the initiatives in procurement at the OMV as project manager, process consultant, and so on.
Great, thanks Thomas. And this is Michiel speaking. I already did my introduction. I'm part of the SAP Ariba Center of Excellence. So let us move on to the next slide. A bit of information about Absolute. Absolute is one of the SAP's trusted and valued preferred partners for procurement, with around 270 employees, located in 12 different countries. They are solely focusing on SAP procurement solutions. Some from the past where a lot of experience was gained during numerous SRM implementations. Absolute is nowadays helping many customers transform towards SAP Ariba and S/4HANA. And we move to the next slide. And there you can see that Absolute is executing many international projects. Then I will move to the next part of the presentation, where I will hand over to Martin, where he will first introduce OMV in more detail, and after that start sharing the OMV digital procurement transformation with you. I remind you again that you can raise questions via the console. We will capture those questions, and at the end of Martin's story, which will take around half an hour, we will discuss the questions with Martin and Thomas. So feel free to ask any questions, and we will pick them up, and at the end of the presentation, we will deal with them. So I will hand over to Martin now to start introducing OMV, and then introduce the digital transformation procurement project to all of you. Martin.
Thank you very much. Once again, to give you in the next 35 something minutes the first in introduction and quick overview about the transformation journey we do at OMV at the moment towards new procurement tool suite consisting of in a hybrid approach consisting of Ariba and HANA, S/4HANA. I would like to start off with the let's say giving you some rationale, some background why we are actually here, why we are in this call, and why we are transforming this our landscape. Then I'll go into a bit more detail of a very, let's say, a key project that we did in this whole journey in summer 2018, where we evaluated how the future landscape will look like and how we will get there. And the third point, I'd like then to give you a glance of what we achieved so far and how the design actually and the roadmap worked out so far. And before we come to the Q&A session, I'll give you an outlook what the next step will be. So in 2016, we asked ourselves, when our new CPO joined as OMV, we asked ourselves typical questions a CPO currently addresses or has in his mind, of course, right? The first one is always about savings, and it's always about on short notice get as much as possible costs reduced. And as you can see here, we did this quite successfully in 2016 and 2017, because what we did is we were able to in a comprehensive sourcing excellence and cost saving initiative, we were able to reduce our operating costs by something like 300 something millions compared on a comparable basis from 2015 and 2016. And a big chunk and a huge contribution, a substantial contribution out of this cost saving comes from procurement. But even more important is, of course, the question, how can we ensure, how can we strengthen the positioning and the value contribution of procurement organizations in the OMB group even further? And this is why we took intensive action to transform procurement into additional value creation procurement. Just to give you a bit of background, which company is OMB? OMB is a fully integrated oil and gas company, which
we cannot make always you give me schedule and I make it a golden one.
Basing there
Increase the powder,
on
everything.
main
No problem.
divisional or let's say businesses, three divisions. On the one side, it's starting with the searching, exploring and producing crude oil in upstream area where we are working worldwide, then bringing this into the refineries, and the three refineries are producing the finished product out of it, and this we are distributing it down to business, but also to our customers. And those business segments, they are actually currently generating roughly a bit more than 20 billion of sales per year, and a clean CCS EBIT of 3-something billion per year. Important is the procurement function within OMB is a global integrated function. So we as procurement are procuring the materials and the services for the complete group worldwide and across all the units. Also, OMB is quite proactively managing its portfolio at the moment. You can see on this chart that we did a lot of investment and divestments in the last year, giving us quite a very agile and very, let's say, challenging, of course, setup. And we as procurement now have two main objectives to fulfill, or two main drivers. And the one is, on the one side, that we need to be agile in our setup and in our way of working. We need to adapt quickly to new situations. And the second point is to remain a financially very healthy company and to have all the flexibility to do these investments and divestments. We of course have to deliver our results. And on the one hand, we have to deliver effective results, but we also have, because in the end this will bring us the money to fund these investments. And on the other hand side, we have to be efficient in our way of working on top. So we saw and we are aware that it is key for us to develop and to transform procurement from a very transactional based focus to a more value generating and integrated focus. And as you are well aware, for sure, this comes with some prerequisites and enablers. And in our case, we identified that those enablers are standardization, harmonization, integration across systems, but also across suppliers. It's about consistent information as an effective decision base, and it's clearly also about increasing efficiency by automation and innovation. And this, of course, again, is only possible if we have a solid and a very state-of-the-art underlying system landscape. So it's about the transformation from a very heterogeneous system landscape with multiple system breaks, from which you can see here on the left side, which we had in 2017, just as an instance, towards a modernized, harmonized, and integrated system landscape which we want to have in the future. So early this year, we were quite aware that we have to move away from this heterogeneous landscape towards this integrated landscape. As you can see, we had multiple systems in place. It was not the case that we did not, that we missed tools or we had a lack of different tools. The problem was more that we did not, that the integration needs to be improved. And that the consolidation of the data and the harmonization of the processes was key. And we needed to go for such an integrated approach for the future. We defined that we were well aware that this is key, but we were not yet aware how exactly the future landscape should look like. Which processes to be done in Ariba, if Ariba can cover our key requirements, and which process to be done in the S4HANA program and system. And this is why we discussed how we will continue in the future, and just because the topic of today is clearly the focus on the SRM part, so the key central tool that we were using in the past as well, I'd like to give you here in the current landscape a little more detail. We are currently basing, that was the status as of 2017, as you can see. We have multiple ECC systems, we have multiple clients, we have a SRM system, which actually fulfills two main objectives. The one is that we distribute our contracts towards the different ECC systems, and the second part is that it's together with the Heiler catalog, our, let's say, catalog solution. As said, in the early this year, we were aware that we want to consolidate our system landscape away from a very customized best breed approach to a more integrated approach. We had a feeling, and also our SAP strategy clearly told us that we will go into the direction of SAP. But what we were not sure is how good can we fulfill our key requirements in future by Ariba and HANA, and which process to do when. And so we decided to go for an evaluation project to exactly come up with answers to let's say 2 or 3 main questions. The first one is we wanted to evaluate the requirements against the capabilities of the current tools. Based on this, we wanted to define together with Absolut the future solution architecture, so how the future landscape of OMV will look like. And we wanted to prepare an implementation roadmap, how we will get to that point of this target landscape. And here we always have to consider, it's on the one hand, it's about implementing Ariba, for instance, but it was always in the combination or in full integration with the overall HANA roadmap that we as a company, as a group, are developing. So those were the objectives of the project. After a scoping and preparation phase, we took actually roughly 12 weeks to go through this process. And after event, I have to say, it was well invested to take these 12 weeks, because whatever we do carefully here in designing this future landscape will pay off and pays off in the implementation. So the front loading here helped a lot in the next steps. We took an intensive period of workshops in the beginning where we sit together with the consultants. We did of course go through our existing processes, but we on the other hand side also went through the current, let's say, demos of the systems. Then we did of course match the requirements, or let's say map the requirements and priorities, so how key they are for us. we evaluated various scenarios, we also with some business case assumptions in the background and some technical dependencies regarding the architecture and the roadmap of the overall group. And based on those different scenarios, we went for the following 4 weeks into a selection and decision process. So it was about evaluating and then about aligning it and putting it into the into proper decision processes. The result of this selection and decision phase was a finalized target landscape and a roadmap how we want to implement it, which was then detailed into the preparation of the implementation. And the result of the last step, this preparation of implementation, was a ready-to-go package, I would say, to go into the next phase, which was the first implementation. So, going through the first step, the evaluation process again, a little bit more detail. What we wanted, as I said, what we wanted to do in the evaluation phase is map requirements against capability. To be frank, we by purpose did not want to go in a classical waterfall method against or through all the detailed requirements, because we wanted to harmonize and standardize processes as much as possible. So for us here, it was key to identify the key requirements, and not only functional requirements, but also strategic targets, organizational setup, and so on. And all those requirements on a high level, on a strategic level, were weighted, and then the fulfillment, I would say, was compared, giving us in the end a weighted transformation scenario. It sounds a bit formalistic, but honestly, when you start such a project, then you have all different types of opinions and different types of feelings towards a final setup. And we wanted to take it a bit on a meta level and a bit formalize this process, to go away a bit from feelings and gut feeling towards a more formalized approach. So what we did is we went through all our main areas, for instance, through sourcing processes. We saw those are our main requirements, we prioritized them, and we mapped them against the capabilities of the S4HANA suite on the one hand, and on the Ariba side in the second part. And on top of this mapping and the fulfillment of the capabilities, we also defined prerequisites if we would go for such a direction, and what the necessary steps would be to go in this direction. As said, this results in the end in different scenarios. In our scenarios, we could have gone towards a single Ariba solution, or we could go towards a S4HANA procurement solution only, or we could go towards an integrated hybrid approach between Ariba and HANA. And clearly the result, and this is for sure company specific, but in our case it was clearly that we could not fulfill our key requirements by just using one of the tools alone. But the good news was that the combination of both is a very good fit and gives us a high percentage of coverage of those key requirements. Doesn't mean, to be quite frank, doesn't mean that each and every of the functionalities as this concrete functionality alone the best one overall, but the integrated approach from an integrated perspective, it gives us the best fulfillment and the best future scenario. Then we designed the future architecture, and I think maybe then Thomas can add some technical details, but the overall guideline here was that or let's say 4 messages. The first one is that, as said, all our main processes can be covered by Ariba and HANA in combination. Of course, there are additional supporting tools like DocuSign for signatures, but they fit into this core backbone where the main processes can be covered. The second good thing is that from now on, our suppliers can work on the same backbone, the same systems than our buyers do, because Ariba is our face towards the supplier, and also the single face towards the supplier. In the past, we had multiple of portals and etc. And then all the detailed operational processes we fit via the cloud integration gateway and a central hub together between Ariba and S4HANA. Thomas, would you like to add something there?
Yeah, I guess you mentioned most of the things, but what is really important is that we switched off the multiple supplier portals, or the idea to have one access for suppliers on the top using sourcing, the Ariba network, and a lot of functionality for service procurement, like the service entry sheets and all this stuff. And also for supplier management, the single access via Ariba would be in plan. And on an internal layer, what's important for OMV is that we have a multi-ERP landscape. There will for sure also an harmonization plan for this, that the central procurement hub scenario will be the layer for internal procurement. People also accessing this backend system. And you already mentioned it, that we use the Ariba Cloud Integration Gateway, which is the new integration technology. And OMV was one of the first companies using it live in the service scenario. We used it for the Ariba network, which is now already live since December.
Thank you. So from a technical landscape, I think we covered this. Yeah. Then maybe regarding the processes, Thomas, would you like to?
Yeah, I will step in. So at the end, you can see on the slide the different layers and the different functionality. So we have on the top all the Ariba modules in scope, having on the top layer the Ariba network, which will be used for supplier registration and supplier qualification. We have also the sourcing in scope, where we have the BIT stuff on the Ariba side, and we are using the Ariba from a supplier point of view to upload the catalogs and doing at the end the operational document exchange for PO and service entry, and at the end also for doing invoicing. The SLP as a second layer is completely used for supplier management, which will replace an old existing application within OMV. And at the end, this information will be transferred to the ERP landscape. At this stage, we are thinking about to have also an MDG, SAP MDG in scope or in discussion, how to harmonize and use that as central integration, but it's not confirmed as in a parallel stream. But it is one thing which is discussed in future. On the third line, we are using sourcing suite for also replacing an old existing application which was not SRM. And at the end, Ariba Contracts is in scope to have this integration layer. Martin mentioned that before. Today, the existing SAP SRM is the operation procurement and also the central contract hub to integrate operational contracts to multiple ERP systems. And this is something which we replaced once with Ariba for having sourcing and doing then the contract management. But the S4HANA layer will integrate this to the multiple ERP systems as a hub scenario. And Ariba Catalog is already in place, and we are also thinking about in the next phase of the project to talk about the guided buying implementation in front of the ERP and the S4HANA suite. And for operational procurement, the S4HANA layer and the ERP system are used. So this is the different integration. You can see the process flow or the high-level process flow. And this is the scope of the implementation. And Martin will later on explain what was the first wave of the project and what the future will look like.
Thank you very much. So having designed in summer this year, 2018 actually, the future landscape, the future high-level process integration, we went ahead and designed a roadmap how we will implement it, giving us, let's say, the transformation matrix from the current systems for the different modules towards the future landscape. We were quite aware that we should not, and it doesn't make sense to do this in one-step approach as a big bang, but that we, especially having in mind that we run this parallel HANA program for the whole group, that we have to do this in multiple steps and multiple waves. So we assigned based on, let's say, benefits, expected benefits, needs, we fit this together in waves, and we defined scope for first wave. And for us it is always very important, and somehow the way how we are working at the moment is that we always want to have a big picture in mind, but we want to do multiple steps and see in a fast pace if we are going into the right direction and see results. And this is why we wanted to do the first wave as a fast-track project, meaning to do it now, even knowing that we will not have full integration to everything and that we will maybe have to readapt integration scenarios and interfaces in the next years. But we by purpose went for fast and rather streamlined, optimized, integrate implementation in the first wave. So the first wave is about piloting and checking using it for sourcing, for instance, and then the following waves are then about integration and multi-backend situation. We will always, and we are always, going back at the end of those waves to check if our assumptions and if our plan are correct and adapting the roadmap. This is the plan, and this is also what we did. As said, the first step towards the final target landscape was the fast-track implementation of Ariba. And what we wanted to do in terms of scope in the beginning is we wanted to go broad in the sense of strategic sourcing. So we want to implement supplier management, supply lifecycle and performance. We wanted to implement the sourcing module and the contract management module on the source to contract side. And on the B2B side, as already said by Thomas, we implemented at Ariba catalogs, and we did the first wave of connecting, of integrating with suppliers via the Ariba network and the commerce automation part. So this is what we wanted to do in a fast-track implementation, and when I say fast-track, I actually mean fast-track. We were quite aware that this will be an act on our side, will be quite an effort on our side, but we started with the fast-track implementation in September, and we went live with the system technically end of December, in the middle of December actually, and we did, as I said, on the one side on the strategic sourcing side, but on the catalog side as well. So that's the full scope and technically live in December. And the good news is actually it's working, and we are very, very happy with what we see so far in terms of adoption and of feedback from the users. Very important is this only works if you have a really functional team and a stable team. If you're not able to trust each other, and if you spend too much time in discussions, then this timeline doesn't work, especially not in the environment, because we are talking here multiple countries and so on. This is quite an effort, and it only works if you stick together as a project team. And so I'm grateful for that, for the whole team effort that was done. We did an intensive workshop period in September and October to come up with a common design. For me, the most important thing was to keep the design together, because of course we are using now pilot countries to do the first sourcing project, but we really want to make sure that we don't build a specific sourcing set up for one country only and then another one for the following, but we really wanted to stick together and do a common design. This worked out pretty well. We did then the realization and deployment, and we are right now closing down at the go live, I said, and right now closing down the first hypercare phase. And based on these experiences, we are adopting and we are planning our next waves and our next implementation and how we will enhance and roll out the whole system. This brings me, I think, to an outlook. As said, so from a strategic perspective, I think it's quite clear what we want to do. We want to grow our business. We want to further strengthen the positioning and the value contribution of procurement. We want that we have a very consolidated, accurate decision base and database for decisions in a modernized and harmonized landscape, and we want to have efficient and automated processes. On more granular level, towards the Ariba and HANA implementation, the next phases are that we want to roll out to all the ventures and all our units the sourcing solution and the contract solution that we did. We of course are working on adding suppliers to our commercial automation, and we are developing how the future catalog solution will look like, meaning we have it in place, but the next rollout, how we will add, for instance, all the service catalogs with a more complex service hierarchy setup. This is what is currently in discussion, and we of course also want to leverage the innovations that are coming by different modules and innovations within the existing modules. What is not in scope so far was the supplier risk part and supplier performance part. As soon as this would come, we would add this on top. So this was it in a nutshell. I think even a bit earlier than planned, so fast track again. And I think I would then hand over back to questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin. This is Michiel speaking again. And indeed, we had many questions. So I will try to collect a couple of them that are absolutely relevant for the large community of people that we have in the call. The first question that I see over here is how big is the team, or the project team? How many functional consultants and how many people from the business are you are executing this project?
So from that's difficult to explain again. So the most important topic is, of course, this only works, especially in this time frame, if you have full, and I'm grateful for that, full senior management commitment, right? So this only works if you have full commitment and support by CPO and CFO. And we had that clearly. So we also had a chance to involve a lot of people from a business perspective. We calculated once that the total project team, meaning all the people that were involved directly in the core project, but also in the first wave of trainings, we were roughly like 60 people, but 60. But of course the core project team, Thomas, correct me, for the fast implementation from a consultant side was maybe 10.
Yeah.
And
that's correct.
Yes. And of course then there's a core team. We actually, that's important in the whole project phase. We kept the core team in the beginning rather small and to be efficient. So we had a lot of empowered users from the different procurement units. They were in the discussions, taking decisions, so we kept it small, and over time we extended it a bit, because of course we wanted to get then all the feedback from the others as well, but I said it was a gradual approach from a very small team towards a growing team towards the end of the project phase.
Okay, thank you. I think a follow-on question on top of that is which tasks in the project are business intensive and which tasks are functional for consulting and IT intensive? And then the following question is it safe to say that migrating catalog, artifacts and contracts are business intensive?
Yes. So business intensive, of course, this is a cloud solution, meaning there is a fundamental shift also from a project approach compared to a classical SAP ERP implementation, for instance. So it's the whole or the higher involvement on business side, the effort is more on the designing of the process, aligning and coming up with the design rather than on, and especially also in terms of communication, because clearly it's a fundamental shift in that if you implement SRM, you get like a toolkit, you have a solid base and you can develop and customize a lot, right? And you need to customize a lot as well. It's a bit the other way around. You get a fully functional suite. There is not such a high flexibility, of course, to program it differently or to customize it differently. So it's about standardization and harmonization, and this is of course effort on business side to change the processes, to communicate properly and so on. So it's clearly on the design phase, and then it's not so much on the technical implementation from an OMV perspective, of course. It's then again in the testing and in the training phase, the effort. And the data migration, of course, if you want to migrate contracts and so on.
Okay.
I don't know, Thomas, maybe you want to add something?
You mostly answered it very well. So the content and the catalog and the contract migration is something where we need business involvement. From a technical side, we have the cloud integration gateway, which worked very well in the implementation. And so from technical side, some activities are for sure there, but most will be the functional team plus the business to do the content migration.
All right. Thank you. Maybe a follow-on question also related to what Martin already mentioned, and there are multiple people interested in that. The actual transition from a customization point of view. So was the transition difficult from a customization point of view coming from SRM going to Ariba? And did you use a specific methodology to address the customizations?
Specific methodology, I don't know. What we did in the evaluation phase already is identify the key requirements and key customizings that we have, meaning we were well aware and not so much in the direction that we need to rebuild those, but rather we want to identify, and then we selected, do we go either for the change of a process, or do we simply it doesn't fit to us, right? And we identified, of course, it's a heavy workload in a sense of change management and changing processes, but it's not so much. Anyway, it's not a technical programming then that you can do. I think so. From perspective,
And again, important. Also, you mentioned the methodology in the beginning. So we were aware of functionality, and we have a mapping between the solutions, and we were all aware what not will work in Ariba in the first wave. And this is something where you also have a now kind of agile implementation approach, where we also wait on enhancements or functionality which will be delivered by Ariba out of the box. For example, in the catalog area, we are aware we want to have stock information shown in the catalog. This is on the roadmap of Ariba. This was already the existing solution, but it was not in scope to have something in wave one of the program. So this is, I guess, important that you or in the implementation approach, you also set the Ariba roadmap and see which functionality you can leverage in which way. And this is what we did already in the early beginning of the program, where we identified requirements to see, are they really needed, are they nice to have, we can switch processes or we switch off functionality, or we can rely on the Ariba roadmap and put it in place on this agile implementation approach.
And maybe one thing to add, the key thing here is expectation management as well, right? What you cannot do is you cannot go to the people and say we are now implementing Ariba. Everything will be faster, better, more harmonized, but you will have the same green button as you had before. So if you're quite straight in the communication and you have sufficient support from management team, I have very good experiences in this. And what is also supporting this is in the agile approach, the key benefit is that you don't develop, as in a classical waterfall approach, you don't develop a paper blueprint for months and then you have it on paper only, which is difficult to grasp for users and key users. And then you implement it, and only a month later you see what is actually how it looks like. And we did really good experiences in the setup to design it in the workshops, immediately customize it or configure it, whatever proper terminology, and see it the next day or at least a week after and work. In this very interactive mode.
Okay, thank you. A question more on the cost-saving achievements. The question is, you shared impressive cost-saving achievements. If you look to the value driver, to which extent did the master data harmonization contribute to the achievements?
I have to be frank, the achievements of the savings that were showed were prior to this. This was a clear classical sourcing excellence initiative, meaning a procurement exercise. The value we see for the future is of course a different one, and I think we are very optimistic that of course the future landscape, the harmonization, and the new capabilities of the tools will support future saving initiatives, but also from an effectiveness side, but also from an efficiency side, of course.
All right. Okay. There is a question about the cloud integration gateway. Thomas presented that and mentioned that it was implemented. The question is there PIPO in between as well to connect via the cloud integration gateway, or is it direct integration with just cloud integration gateway?
It's only the cloud integration gateway. There is no PI in this scenario, so we directly use this new technology, and the experience are very good with that.
Okay. Maybe on top of that, another technical question. You mentioned, Thomas, about central procurement, also called the procurement hub. The question is how to connect one Ariba realm or environment to several ECC backends.
Thomas,
That's the reason why we discussed about multiple ERP systems that and it's central integration. Let's say using the procurement hub. Sure, it is not in place or live or part of the past, but it is now in design phase. That we also the central procurement hub to connect the multiple ERP systems later with the log and the guided buying, and also for the central contract mentioned before. For fast track at the moment, we are directly connecting the systems or the systems to the ECC, to the existing landscape, and the replacement of or the situation layer with the app will be for one of the next waves. You saw in this transformation timeline Martin showed before.
Yes. I get multiple questions about the commodities that are procured. People want to know how about services, how about direct materials, how about indirect materials. So let's just try to cover them with one question. Could you share, Martin, what commodities are in scope of this transformation project?
Yeah, so we are in principle, I said it's all the procurement activities for a company like OMV, so it's materials and services. We are quite heavy on services side, a lot of repair and facilities and production site equipment topics, so quite a complex service hierarchy setup as well. And in terms of commodities, it's starting from classical business services and IT equipment all the way down to well-related services for our upstream offshore wells.
Okay.
So, and the focus of the initial, let's say, from a commercial automation perspective and a catalog perspective, we started to gain the experience on the more classical, like office material supplies, such topics, and we will then go via the materials, SAP material side, then also towards the more complex service setup.
Okay. Another question is around sustainable procurement. The question is, how do you ensure sustainable procurement is done?
How do you ensure sustainable procurement is done for supply? So, I mean, as said, we are also, not sure if I'm gathering the question fully right, but what we are doing is, of course, we moved our supplier registration qualification process into Ariba as well. So our supplier management will leverage also the supplier lifecycle and performance tools. We do that now, and of course, sustainability topics are here also a key qualification and evaluation criteria.
Yeah, from a supplier sustainability perspective, Ariba, of course, positions the supplier risk module. Are there any plans around that module as well, Martin?
Yes, that's as stated before. I think we are looking into this, and we have it on our plan. We will do this as one of the next phases. We are clearly interested in this topic. Of course, to go into a more proactive monitoring as well in this area.
Okay, thank you. Then I think we will move to the last question, and I will pick a more technical one again. The question is, how challenging was the ERP integration? So, Thomas, you can. Yeah.
Yes. So, as mentioned before, due to the functionality from Ariba, to have an integration scenario based on the cloud integration gateway, which helps a lot to get rid of the old integration way. And this is something we will now start also the integration of an additional or the multi-ERP landscape we saw before. And it worked really good. And also from a technical implementation effort, there's no PIPO or the CPIPO needed for that integration, and it's more or less really out of the box integration scenario, and the experiences are really, really good with that approach.
Okay. Thanks a lot. With that,
can I just add, of course, what is important in this integration topic is the releases of the existing systems, right? If you have multiple systems, if you have old release levels, then you might run into a topic, but for the existing, for the more recent up-to-date ones, fully support what Thomas just said.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Martin. Thanks a lot, Thomas, for providing this very interesting story and answering all the questions. With that, we are very close to the end of this webinar. And at closure of the webinar, we would like to ask all of you to rate the webinar and also to ask you for open feedback. Please provide us with feedback what kind of specific information you missed and what you would like us to focus on with regards to the on-premise to cloud transformation topic. So after closure of the webinar, you will receive a pop-up allowing you to provide that kind of feedback. And on top of that, we would like to bring your attention to our next event that will take place on the 2nd of April at 10:30 CET. And during this hands-on lab, we will explain into detail how easy it is to set up your processes in SAP Ariba and how quickly you can change certain configuration settings and allow your requester to get access to the latest content. So this will be a deep dive and it will give you valuable insights in the differences between on-premise configuration and rapid agile cloud deployment. Again, after closure of the webinar, you will also receive a pop-up with a link to that new webinar in April so that you can register for that webinar. And we will also send you the link of the recording of this webinar afterwards. Further, I would like to highlight the different events that our partner Absolute is organizing around the same topic. More details can be found on their website, which is app-salute.com. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again during one of our next events. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rajesh, go. Eh? Oh, yes. God is coming to me.